Exactly 4 years ago, I had an epiphany of some sort that had to do with one of the longest lasting research questions about information. Information is at the cellular and at the molecular and atomic level. What does it even mean? How do cells communicate? How do atoms communicate? How do they even know what to say and how to interpret it and so forth? And as a result, there was an epiphany that I had, which was so ridiculous at that point in my mind and so silly that I disregarded it. But it kept coming back and I sort of could not brush it off. And then I thought to myself, just because I will never be able to prove this, let me turn it into a fiction story and just write it as a fiction story. And so I did. And then I didn't even think about it. It was just in my Google Doc, and I didn't think much about it because, again, it was a very, very silly thought, and forgot about it until last night. Something happened last night and I have to share it with you guys. And so the strangest thing happened last night. I was just looking through a streaming platform, looking for something to watch. And if you have ever done grad school and full-time job and everything else in life for over a decade in your life, you probably understand what I'm about to say, because essentially you have no life, and with that you never get to watch the normal TV shows and movies that everybody else watches. And so I'm still catching up, to be honest. I'm still watching some of the TV shows that everybody's talking about and movies and so forth. And it came up as a live movie, live feed on my streaming channel, and the movie Interstellar. And I had never watched it, again, because when you're in grad school and working full time, you don't have time for anything. But recently I saw TikTok videos about how cool that movie is, and then I saw a documentary on TikTok that essentially explained that they had hired a lot of scientists to help them with creating this movie. So a lot of things in the movie was to some extent close to the truth. Of course, a lot of it was fiction, but some of it was true. And the movie had already passed. It was an hour and a half, into the movie, because it was live. And normally I would just dismiss it, but just because I had seen watched this TikTok videos about Interstellar, I'm like, oh, that is a very cool movie. I should probably watch it because I never saw it. And so it was right when the hero of the movie is sort of trying to now get into the black hole, and they were like fighting and all that stuff. And I'm sitting there eating popcorn and watching it and thinking it's sort of really cool, until it came to the moment where he actually went into the black hole, and the way in which he communicated and transferred information from within the black hole to his daughter in another timeline. And that is where I literally dropped what I had in my hand, and my jaw dropped to the ground, because I had forgotten about the fiction story that I had written. But it turned out that that part had actually been part of my fiction story, in terms of the theory, if you will, the ridiculous theory that I had as an epiphany, in terms of the information, that all information that exists is within the black holes, and that is how we get all the information transferred from that into our brain cells. And that is where all the rules as to how the information is being transferred, communicated, translated. That's where it comes from. In other words, the epiphany was that within the black holes, all the information is stored like in a library, like in that movie actually. And then the connection between the sensory pickup of the cells and the neurons of living organisms on Earth is dependent on that information exchange. And so that is where the connection is, and that is how we can ultimately understand what information is, because these are bits and pieces of the movement of electrons, as well as magnetism, and they are being transferred into a specific codes that then it transfers across the universe, or whatever you want to call it, and that is how we grasp it. That's potentially also a reason for where several people could have the same research findings, for example, but they live in different parts of the world, which actually has happened. So everybody gets the same thoughts, so to speak, more or less on the same time. And these are coded into Morse code. So you can imagine 4 years ago when I was having these thoughts, I started laughing, and that's why I ended up writing it as a fictitious. And you can imagine why my jaw dropped when I saw him in the black hole within the library, and then transmitting information via Morse code to his daughter. Now, in this movie, this was a person to person, and then in the fictitious story that I wrote is just that it's not a person to person, it's just transferring of space and time. So there is no person per se, it's just all data, it's just all information, and it's just being transferred through Morse code. And somehow the human brain, as well as all other living organism, is able to innately know how to translate that collective Morse code that is being stored within the universe, and more specifically in black. How crazy is that? I had never watched the movie. I did not even know it existed. Cross my heart. And then something like this, I actually see it in a movie, and so I really felt like I had to share it with you guys, because I have no explanation for this except for this is crazy. And so I ended up calling the book The Neutrina She Never Was, and neutrina comes from neutrino. I'm sure you know what neutrino is, because it also has to do with the essence of all information existing within neutrinos. And so the chapter 1, for example, I can just read a blurb from you, is that Neutrina woke up not in the traditional sense, but as if from a slumber so deep that even the fabric of reality seemed to shift around her. She wasn't in her dorm room anymore, or the halls of the university. No, she was floating. No, suspended in a vast, inky expanse. She could feel the pull of something distant, something alive with energy, beckoning her forward. It was the first lucid dream she had ever experienced, or at least the first that felt like more than a feeling, a fleeting echo on her subconscious. Her mind was clear, sharper than ever, and she understood immediately that she was dreaming. But it was not the typical dream. No, this one had a purpose. The vastness before her shimmered, rippling like the surface of water. distributed by an unseen force. As she reached out, her hand brushed against something cool, something so strange and familiar that it left her breathless, a black hole. The image before her shifted again, this time revealing a swirling mass of light and darkness. The gravity of the black hole's pull was irresistible, and she felt herself drawn toward it. But instead of fear, there was something else, an understanding, a profound knowing that this was where she needed to be. Chapter 2, The Burden of Knowing. When Neutrina awoke the next morning, she was not fully sure if the dream had been real or if it was just another feverish vision brought on her by late night studying. But the feeling lingered, the undeniable sense that something far beyond her understanding had just brushed against her consciousness. The knowledge was there, tucked away, as if it had always been hers to discover. She tried to shake off the lingering sensation, but it wouldn't leave her. The image of the black hole, the vortex of data, and the whispering voice all stayed with her, running through her mind like a constant hum. It was during her first lecture of the day at the university that the weight of her discovery truly hit her. Professor Donovan, a man in his late 60s with a reputation for being both brilliant and dismissive, was lecturing on the fundamental principles of quantum mechanics. But her mind was far, far away, tangled in the concepts from her own dream. In the middle of the professor's explanation about the nature of black hole, Neutrina felt the impulse to speak up and raised her hand. Professor Donovan, her voice breaking slightly, is it possible that the black hole is not just a singularity, but a storage device of information? Everything, in fact, like a cosmic archive or library where every bit of knowledge in the universe is stored, even our own memories. Professor Donovan raised an eyebrow and said, "Interesting theory. But unless you've cracked some new mathematical formula I'm not aware of, I'd suggest sticking to what's already been established. Black holes are complicated, yes, but they're hardly libraries of human consciousness." And so the story goes on, but as you can see, it was mentioning library and black hole and human consciousness. And with human consciousness in this context, I mean us being aware of who we are, especially our memories, because our memories is actually what makes us knowing, at least to some extent, who we are. And if that is wiped away, it's been research that shows that it's very hard for people to remember who they are, basically. So they take on new personality. But nonetheless, that's beside the point. The point is this, that you can imagine how my jaw dropped when I saw that part of the movie where he was literally in the library and then he was talking in Morse code. And in fact, in this book, I also do mention Morse code. I just need to find it and read it to you guys. But anyways, now that I was able to see this in the movie, and because I know that to some extent is backed by science, I'm assuming that there was something that these scientists were also have been at least thinking about. I don't feel as shy anymore, and I think I'm just going to actually self-publish it on Amazon among the other books that I've self-published, because at least I think this is very interesting. And it's not that long, actually. It's a very, very short book. And again, it's just fictitious about this girl. And then she ends up, anyways, if you want, you can read it, or I can read the rest for you as well. So that's all I had for today. And I'll definitely let you know, guys, when I upload the manuscript to the Amazon KDP for self-publishing, because it takes them a while to read through the manuscripts and to approve it. But isn't it funny? I even created a cover image for the book. Weird, yeah. This is really weird. Nothing scientific, by the way. It was just again, an epiphany or an imagination that I wrote a fiction story about, and then here I am watching it in the Interstellar movie for the first time. Anyway, so thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.